In this discussion, we'll be looking at zero. Now, zero is a very different number to any other number. I mean, there's nothing to it, and that's the point. How is it possible to represent something with nothing? If there's nothing, you don't need a number to represent what isn't there. You don't go into Burger King and say, "No chips, please." You just don't ask for them. So, looking at it rationally, zero shouldn't even be a number. This is what takes apart the whole idea the world can only be seen rationally, something which arose in the Enlightenment and which eschewed any mystical or spiritual aspects of human civilization. Yet without zero, the possibilities are zero, they're nothing, they're limited, including the very scientific basis of modern society. Modern science couldn't exist without zero. The Romans did not have zero, so although we admire their great architectural feats, they were limited. Calculus is needed for the works of modern engineering and civil engineering, so it needs zero. Without zero, there's no calculus. Charles Singh is an American author and journalist, a professor at New York University. He's written extensively on scientific and mathematical topics. His first and perhaps best known book is Zero, The Biography of a Dangerous Idea, and indeed it is dangerous. Because without zero, as I've mentioned, there would be no modern society as we understand it. Modern engineering, as I said, would be impossible without calculus, which again needs zero. But also modern art. Modern art needs a vanishing point to show perspective, something that was missing before the Renaissance. In his book and TV series Civilisation, Neil Ferguson speaks of the killer apps which made the West superior to the rest. Those killer apps needed zero. Competition needs accurate bookkeeping. Science needs accurate data. Property needs accurate measurement and records. Medicine needs accurate method of diagnosis. And the consumer society was the result of industrialization, which needed accurate calculations of production, while work, which is based, needed precise methods of evaluating the output of this work, of this labour. In other words, that very modern Western civilization of which Professor Ferguson speaks would have been impossible without the existence of zero. But zero is about as far removed from Western civilization as can be imagined. It was an anathema to ancient Greeks, to whom we owe rationalism, philosophy, humanism, and the very scientific method on which Western civilization is based and Western science is based. Zero, however, has only ever existed in societies which had a deep spiritual basis, because its origins and genesis are not rational, they are spiritual and mystical. It in fact first appeared amongst the Maya civilization of Central America, modern Mexico and Guatemala. Of course, being cut off from the rest of the world, the Mayan civilization of the Incas, Aztecs and much else had no impact on the West due to its remoteness, so the Mayan zero really didn't make contribution to modern mathematics, although their calculations were phenomenal. By the time invading Europeans destroyed the ancient cultures of the Americas, the zero was already in use by them. So to find this zero, we must look to India. Now in 7th century India, Brahmagupta was the first mathematician to give rules to compute with zero. It is a decimal number system, Brahmagupta's algorithms for arithmetic, which has spread throughout the world and have become standard. His work, the Brahmas Pusatedanta, is the earliest known text to treat zero as a number in its own right, along with 1, 2 and the rest. Up until now, it's simply been used as a placeholder digit, representing another number, as was done by the Babylonians, or as a symbol for a lack of quantity, as was done by Ptolemy, ancient Greeks and the Romans. Brahmagupta also describes operations on something also quite novel at the time, negative numbers. Again, essential for modern maths and science. These negative numbers were only possible with the existence of zero. You have plus, above zero, more than zero. Below that are negative. Without zero, the concept of negative numbers does not come into play. In his BBC series A Story of Maths, Marcus Assortoy, professor of mathematics at the University of Oxford, traced back the idea for zero in India to the concept of shunya moksha and the nothingness which is central to Hindu, Jain and Buddhist belief. The idea that one can find relief from the endless cycle of death and rebirth known as karma for a stage of release known as moksha, a state of nothingness which Buddhists call nirvana. This means that rationalism, modern science and the superior Western society it created ultimately at its root owes its very existence to these supposed nebulous ideas, what Ayn Rand dismissed as the mystic muck of India in her book Atlas Shrugged. Without that mystic muck, her society wouldn't have existed. So, I guess it depends where the muck really lies. To dismiss this as an accident or a byproduct, it was the very mind which created it. Hence the reluctance for the Western mind to try and understand this, and instead dismiss it as just backward, superstition, the manner of Rudyard Kipling, Karl Marx and a host of others. In doing so, such Western thinkers reject, in fact the whole narrative, the scientific rational narrative, contradicts itself because it doesn't want to look at inconvenient facts which scientists and rationalists, atheists, humanists always seem welcome to embrace, and accuse others of being superstitious and wanting to be anti-modern and reject the truth. Well, what is happening here? However, this is nothing new if we understand the basis of modern humanism and secularism. The ancient Greeks rejected zero, and the modern West rejects the spiritual mind which gave birth to it. And of course, the ancient Greeks are the precursor of modern West civilization. So we're going to take up the narrative. In doing so, by following the ancient Greek model and continuing with it, it rejects the very scientific methods of proof, evidence and experimentation as to where zero came from. What will be most galling to those who claim Western civilization is superior is that at its root is based upon the very backward superstition that produced zero. Without the Hindu ethos, there would have been no zero, and none of the technology which makes the West superior. There would be no industrial revolution without that Hindu mindset, and no modern West. The West would have been overtaken and not have been dominant, as indeed appears to be happening now. Civilizations aren't static, they continue to move on. And until we look at civilization having that base in spirituality and in fact Hindu origins, in many ideas we take as essential to the modern scientific Western rationalism and Western civilization, then those ideas can't move forward. Thank you for listening, and please, as always, open your mind. Thank you.